Okay, in this episode we are going to be talking about Sega Smash Pack for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, published by THQ. You can see my copy here is a little bit in rough shape. I actually bought this at a local thrift store at a Goodwill, I think for $1.99. So I was okay with the label damage and everything. So it's, cheap play copy. I'd never actually played this before. I didn't even know what games were on here prior to buying it. I just knew that there was probably an assortment of Sega games on here. I was guessing Genesis, which turns out to be the case. But anyways, like I said, you can see it's in pretty bad shape. Also, there's some gnarly labels on here and stuff. Now you may ask yourself, why is this garbage still on here? Well, because this game was garbage, to be honest with you. After I played it for a little bit, it was so bad that I don't even feel the need to put the time into getting this crap off. So let's go ahead and pop this into my Game Boy Advance SP and take a look at some of the gameplay and talk about what I think are some of the issues with the Sega Smash Pack for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Okay, so I've got my Game Boy SP here. I've got Sega Smash Pack popped in. Let's take a look and see what this looks like. Alright, well I would hope it's licensed by Nintendo. Well, a lot of people putting their names at the beginning of this that I'm surprised when I have any credits or anything to do with it. And you'll see why here in a few minutes. So these are all Sega Genesis games that are on here. So you can hear the first problem already. This sound is just garbage. Let's go ahead and press start. So here's our game selection. We have Echo the Dolphin, Golden Axe, and Sonic Spinball. Why Sonic Spinball? Why not Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, 3? Sonic Spinball, I don't remember enjoying it that much as a kid. I don't remember it being, that popular of a game. So, kind of an interesting choice of games, those three. That's the only three that are here. Echo the Dolphin, Golden Axe, and Sonic Spinball. And we also have an option setting menu, which is kind of interesting. You can basically configure controls for each of the games. You remember the Sega Genesis controller had 3 buttons, A, B, C. Well, as you see, Game Boy Advance only has A and B. So by default, your right trigger serves as kind of your third button in a lot of games. So we'll hit B to go back. Let's take a look at Echo the Dolphin first. And you'll recognize that sound effect from the game. No, see the sound, the music is it's just terrible. Like I've played Echo the Dolphin on some of those plug and play, those Radica plug and play systems. This is the password menu. Let me get that back out of here. And those a lot of times have bad sound, or the sound is a little bit off. But this is just terrible. And the Game Boy Advance is capable of better sound, better sounds. The music just sounds so tinny. It's awful. But anyways, you get the idea. It's Echo the Dolphin. By default, the A button shoots your sonar or whatever that is. The B button does the charge that you can use to eat fish or attack, and then your right trigger is your swim button. So if we swim up, that should start the. I believe if you swim up high enough, it triggers an event. There we go. But you can see the sound is just off. The sound is not good. The controls are okay. Controls well enough, like just kind of like it did in the Sega game. I will tell you, your finger over here does get worn out after a while of, pushing it to get him to swim faster. That does get a little tiresome. start pauses. And there doesn't seem to be any way once you start a game really to get out of the game. There's no exit this game, start another one. So the only thing that I have found is basically turn it off and back on again. We'll take a look at each of the games, but I will spare you all the startup sequence again. So we'll come back and take a look at Golden Axe next. And we're back again with that terrible music. So let's take a look at Golden Axe next. And there's the classic scream from Golden Axe. And like I said, this appears to be the Sega Genesis version of Golden Axe. But as you can hear again, the music, it's just terrible. It's offensive. Let's pick arcade difficulty, and we will be the dwarf because everybody always wants to be the dwarf. So yeah, this is Golden Axe. It's a beat 'em up, side-scrolling beat 'em up. Everybody's out to kill this Death Adder guy. Each character in the game has a beef with him for some reason. So this axe-wielding dwarf is out to go kill him. Anyways, you can see it controls good enough, but it just, first of all, I don't remember the enemies being quite that dark, so some of the color palettes seem off. The music is just offensive to the ears. And again, forgive my playing, I'm playing this kind of through a viewfinder. Oh, this is terrible. Spam the charge move a little bit. There we go. Anyways, you kind of get the gist of the game. You get beat up by guys. No, you fight these guys. It's kind of the same, I think, half a dozen sprites they use throughout the game as far as common enemies. You know, they do some color swaps on the sprites or whatever, but Golden Axe is another one of those games, at least the first one. I don't think it's aged as well as people remember it. I think people remember it fondly, and I'm not saying it's a bad game, but I just don't think it's... There's better entries in the series. Golden Axe 3, I believe, in the arcades was a pretty good one. The creatures that you got to ride were a lot better. I believe these are called Bizarrians. I don't like this thing. It controls weird. I'm actually having better luck. I usually have a hard time hitting these guys with this thing, but every time you use the tail whip, it spins you around the other way, so you have to know real quick to spin around again the way you were facing to attack again. The other big feature of this game, of course, is the magic. Using it kills all the guys. So like I said, it's Golden Axe, and it plays like Golden Axe for the most part, but the music is just terrible. And a lot of Sega games, the music is part of it. You know, I remember this sounding a lot better than this on the Sega Genesis. Anyways, let's go ahead, before I embarrass myself any further with my Golden Axe skills, let's take a look at the last game included in the Sega Smash Pack, Sonic Spinball. Okay, Sonic Spinball. So this is a Sonic the Hedgehog themed game. You play as Sonic the Hedgehog, but it's not a traditional Sonic the Hedgehog like platformer type game. It's actually it's a pinball game. God, that music, it just sounds so bad. You see it does kind of the dot matrix pinball display at the top. So you run off there, and you kind of get thrown into a pinball field. A does the flippers. If you drain, quote unquote, drain yourself or go down, you kind of have a chance to save yourself. And there's bad guys that kind of act as the bumpers. You really don't have any control over where Sonic is going, really, except for where you're aiming with your flippers. And that's kind of my biggest complaint. I don't think that you should necessarily be able to control the ball in a pinball game, but the physics just don't. They just seem off in this game. Uh-oh. Anyways, you get the idea. it takes a lot to get anything going in this game, and because of the randomness of the physics, sometimes you can get into what you're seeing here, where you just see me kind of bouncing around the same corners and hitting the same things. Oh, you ate me that time. And it's kind of boring and slow for a pinball game. Normally, I like pinball. I like traditional pinball games, and I like video game pinball games. But this one I just never really could get into. I have it on the Sega Genesis as well, but it really just sits on a shelf in a box, with the rest of the Sonic the Hedgehog games just to complete the series. But it's not something that I ever really pull out and play, or think to myself, gee, I remember all those fun childhood times of playing Sonic Spinball. I would say my go-to Sonic game on the Sega Genesis is Sonic 2. That was the first one I ever had, and that's probably always going to be my favorite. So they're all pretty good, though. Sonic 1, Sonic 3 is good. Sonic and Knuckles I like. Playing through Sonic 2 as Knuckles is fun. So let's turn this off before it assaults my ears anymore. So, Sega Smash Pack for the Game Boy Advance. Would I recommend it? No. It's an interesting mix of games. Echo the Dolphin's an okay game. I never really got into it as a kid. I think it's a good game, but it's just an interesting game to include on here, especially if you're only going to include 3 games. Golden Axe is probably the most fun out of the 3 that are on here. Sonic Spinball it's okay. But again, if I was going to only have 3 games, a 3-game collection, I definitely could understand Golden Axe, but maybe I would do Altered Beast, Golden Axe, in the first Sonic game, or Columns and Golden Axe. Golden Axe definitely, but Echo the Dolphin and Sonic Spinball, if you're only going to have 3 games, I don't understand wasting 2 of your choices on that. And like I said, the sound is so bad, the sound quality, that I really, unless you are, trying to go for a complete Game Boy Advance collection, there's just better ways to play these Sega games than this particular release. So would I recommend it? No, not unless you come across it like I did for $1.99, and it's just cheap filler for your collection or something to let one of your nieces or nephews or little kids play with, or something. Other than that, though, no, I can't recommend it. So thanks for watching, and make sure and subscribe if you like my reviews or find them interesting at all, and feel free to leave any comments, negative or positive, down below. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.